That book is really about not just that time, but the things that happened to me, some of the darkest times that I had turned completely around, and all the people that I met along the way that I would have thought had nothing to teach me, who taught me everything.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. It is great to be back with you again this week. We're hanging out with another amazing member of the Flipped Lifestyle community. We are welcoming Jessica Stipanovic. I had to practice that one onto the podcast today. How you doing, Jessica?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on, Shane. It's great to be here.
And I just want to publicly thank you for your incredible patience with our horrific calendaring system that we actually had this scheduled before and we got all mixed
Hey,
up.
we made it. We finally made it. It's all right.
We did it. All right. So before we get started real quick, just tell everybody a little bit about you and about your background and a little bit about where you started online, but we won't go down that rabbit hole because I got some follow-up questions for that. But just a little bit about your background that led you to online business and how you decided you wanted to do this, things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So my husband and I own a company in Florida, a hurricane shutter manufacturing company, and it took off, and we wanted to really just kind of we ended up at the live surge event, the live event. I think it was in Orlando, and that's where I saw a lot of speakers that inspired us to really go forward with entrepreneurism. And then I signed up for yours, which was like a couple weeks later, and that was in November of 2022. I went to that event and signed up with Flip Lifestyle.
Have you always wanted to like do something like a brand, like a podcast, or go out there? Like what inspired you to take a message to the world?
Okay, so when I was 19, I knew I was going to write a book. I then was a freelancer for a decade and started to put together a book in, I think it was 2005. And so when that started, I wrote about 20,000 words and I put it down for 15 years.
Wow.
And so what ended up happening when I went to the Flipped Lifestyle event, I had been home with the kids. I had taken off, raised kids. Seems like the magic number for the women in my family is like when they turn 8, you get back in the game. And so I jumped back in. I launched my first online business. It was women live online writing sessions for women writers where people can come together, set a timer, get accountable, get some, get their job, their drafts, their stuff done, their editing. In a busy life, when you have a scheduled time to do something, that worked for me. And I saw it at the Flipped event. I saw the Unchained writer.
All right, so let's talk about this because this is a theme in your journey that's fascinating. I think you might have leveraged the networking in the Flip Lifestyle community as good or better than anyone else. So we have I have a friend named Joe Nicoletti, and I helped him build a membership for writers. His original business was this business called Learn Scrivener Fast. Scrivener is like a writing software, and then he realized that people were buying the software, buying his product, but they weren't really finishing their book. And the origin of that business was he surveyed his people and they said, "What's wrong?" They're like, "I'm writing alone." So he literally created this incredible business called Unchained Writer, where he had hundreds of people join this community based on his personality, and they literally just go write together on Zoom. They play some music. He had a big hourglass that he just flipped over and said, "We're going to write for an hour."
I remember that.
And he just books after books after books started flowing out of that community. So you saw this and were like, well, I'm different than Joe. I have a different personality. I'm going to go put my spin on this. And then you got people to join your membership to write books.
Yeah. So I remember that you guys talked about mapping it out like at a cafe or some coffee shop on a napkin. And I love the simplicity of that because that grabbed me. And then I saw him standing in the back of the room and I went up and talked to him and I said, gosh, this is like incredible. And two, because I could write along with them, because I wanted to get that done too. And when I looked his up, I thought I can do like, this is something that I can do, but I can do it for women specifically.
Right. All you did was you just used your personality. It's the same niche, but not everyone's going to like Joe. Some women might want to come just to yours and have that different kind of vibe, that different kind of like experience. And what I love about this too, the beauty of it is Joe's not threatened by this. Joe's like, cool, like this is amazing. It's just like we're all serving different people. So it doesn't matter if we're doing the same thing.
Exactly. And like the timing of when women would be available. I know kids at school doing this, if they're working full-time jobs, I put a night one. So I could speak to them because, I'm living that life right alongside them.
Also, too, I want to highlight something here just for the listeners. Like, I love that you said, even if not a lot of people buy this quickly, I'm going to get a huge benefit because this will give me a what do you call it? A calendar date, a responsibility to show up for something and write my own book. When Jocelyn launched her first business, elementarylibrarian.com, we were looking at it and, we always ask this question like, what if it doesn't work? Right? Like, what if no one buys this? And her reasoning was, well, I don't have a year of lesson plans for myself created. So I'm going to create this year of lesson plans. The worst case scenario is this is motivation that I'll have my lesson plans done forever. So it's always a good auxiliary benefit when you get something like that out of your business that you're starting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there is enough for everyone. It's like you can have a similar business, but it's going to speak to someone differently. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
From all the messaging. So at this point, you're basically deciding to pick this book up and finish this book. And then you said you met another member of the Flip Lifestyle community, Chad Allen. So like what happened
Yeah.
with that? Was that like why did you get like what did you learn from Chad or what did you get involved with Chad?
Yeah. So I was on one of the forum calls that we were doing for Flipped. I went on every other day, and
Sure.
there was a replay of Chad. And he had a guest spot, and
Right.
I listened to it, and I was blown away because he was in the publishing industry for 20 plus years, and he went to Ireland. There was this whole story, and it just really resonated with me. And I remember it was like midnight, and I said to my husband, I said, I'm going to email him. And like, I didn't know if he would respond or not, but he did. And I since joined his community. He has Book Camp, which is a community of writers,
Yep.
where everybody is just so focused on whatever literary work they're working on. It's a really generous, supportive community. And so I ended up meeting him, and we talked about my book and getting it back on track. And I'm still there, actually working on it.
I love one of the things I've always loved about the online world is like how small it is.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
so Chad, I have a friend named Grant Baldwin that runs another business called the Speaker Lab, and he trains speakers. And Chad and him live close to each other, and they knew each other. And one day, Grant called me. And he goes, "Hey, I got a buddy named Chad. I really think that you guys could help him do something really cool. He's got some ideas." So I called Chad and we talked a little bit and he was like because it's a friend of a friend and he joined the community and then his business just blew up like overnight once he implemented the membership model started building this amazing community and then it's so funny because then years later you get like the causal chain of events for all of these things to happen. But like that's why we were so passionate and we are still passionate. Like the community has always been the heart of what we're trying to build. I mean, we want trainings and we want live calls, one of those things. But like to see that chain of events happening in the background always absolutely blows my mind. Where are you at? Or where do you live at?
I'm
In
in
Florida?
Florida. I live in
Yeah, and
Florida.
is Chad in
Mhm.
Michigan? Is that where he
I
is? I
think
can't
so.
remember.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so it's so
I believe
weird that
so.
like a guy in Nashville calls a guy from Kentucky who helps a guy
Right.
in Michigan, and then he later helps you with your book that you put down for
Oh,
15
yeah.
years. Like I just love the
I
ripples
know
of all
it's
that.
crazy. And he had a writers retreat in Chicago, and people came and got together. I didn't go. I should have went, but I didn't. And it's just amazing how with the online world you can connect, and
Yeah,
you can really you can really make things happen and get that accountability or that advice or
yeah.
the support and anywhere in the
The cra-
entire
the,
world.
the the craziest one that happened to me in these causal chains. One time, I think I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again. So I was before I started speaking, I had never been on stage. I mean, I had hundreds of podcasts under my belt, and I was going down to do my first event for over 2,000 people. and it was in Florida. And I was on the sound stage doing sound check the night before, and I was so nervous, Jessica. I seriously was about to vomit right there on the stage when I walked out
I
and
can
saw all those
imagine.
chairs.
Hmm.
And I was flipping through my slides, and I was flipping through some testimonials just to show stories from the Flip Lifestyle community. And I stopped on this guy named Kevin Depew, and he was holding a guitar. Well, this roadie soundstage guy was standing beside me doing sound check with me. And
Hmm.
he stops me and he goes, "Hey, I love that guy." And I literally thought he said, "I love that slide." And I'm like, "It's a middle-aged dude with a guitar. What are you talking about? Like, why would you
Right,
like
right,
the
right.
slide?" And
Uh-huh.
no, that's Kevin Depew. He teaches
Wow.
guitar online, and in his membership.
See
And
that?
Kevin lives in Cincinnati. He had been a member since the very beginning of Flip Lifestyle, wildly successful at what he does. But it was just that moment, like all my anxiety, all my stress went away because I was like, I helped Kevin. Kevin helps this guy. And somehow
It's all
God
connected,
puts
and
him right beside me when I was nervous. It was just such a cool way to see the world. And I don't think people get it unless they're in the online side,
that's
you know?
great.
That's
Hmm.
amazing. So all right. So you start writing your book again. And what's your book about again?
My book it's a memoir. It's not from the beginning of my life. It's a section of my life where I overcame alcoholism and
Mm,
in my early 20s. And I spoke out loud about that for the very first time at my 18th year 2 summers ago. And
mm,
I did that as a direct result of seeing everybody do that, like Peggy Easterling. She has the
hmm.
Mindset School. She's also a Flip
Yes.
member. I just started seeing people be out loud about things that were hidden behind doors where you would,
Mm,
and that was just a private thing for me for many years. And I spoke out loud about it. And I thought it's easy to write it in a book, but now, it was difficult. It was a process, but nothing happened. Everything was great. My whole world opened up. It was
mm,
probably one of the best things I could have done. And
yeah.
from that, so I took that time that I had opened the online writing sessions for women, whether I had 10 people in the room, I wrote. And I also offered some free sessions throughout the summer. They were called summer sessions. And I finished my rough draft. I finally
Nice.
finished. Like I brought it up from that 20,000 words 15 years ago. I brought it up to 52,000 words by the end of August. It was
So
incredible. And it was
15
all
years
because
to
of,
get so it sits in hiatus with 20,000 and you just double
yes.
that within a few months
Uh-huh.
because you opened your own membership and other people got the benefit of writing with you at the same time.
Exactly. And so
Incredible.
that book is really about not just that time, but the things that happened to me, the like some of the darkest times that I had turned completely around, and all the people that I met along the way that I would have thought had nothing to teach me, who taught me everything. And
Mm,
that's that how like the podcast, the Sober Living Stories podcast grew out of that because I bring on guests who did just that, like took something really difficult in their life and completely transformed it. It's like
it's
hope,
amazing.
unexpected places, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
I love the progression here. You're like, okay, so I'm going to jump in and try something. Simple membership. All I need is Zoom. And then you finish this book and you get this first draft written. You're like, okay, this is now a thing. And also, kudos. I've written a book, hardest thing I've ever done. It's very difficult to write a book. So congratulations for getting that draft out. That's the hardest part. And then now you launch a podcast. Did you find that launching a podcast was difficult? Was it hard? Like, because a lot of people I think are intimidated by the podcast, and it's so necessary in this day and age to have either a YouTube channel or a podcast. Like, how was that process for you when you did that?
The technology, that process was surprisingly simple, even down to the
Mm.
editing. For me, I had interviewed for 10 years in person, like for newspapers, magazines, that kind of thing. So transitioning to
You were a freelance writer, correct? A
yeah,
freelance
I
writer?
worked for
Yeah.
newspapers and magazines. And so that was like years ago when you would have to go out and sit across the desk from someone, take the details of the room so you can go home and put the article together. So when I transitioned over to podcasting, I wasn't sure what I was going to use for an author platform, but I didn't want to edit the draft. I was
Mm,
just, and Chad had said, "Hey, put it away. What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to build a platform. That's exciting to
yeah.
me." So he said, "Go do that. You can go back to the draft later." And that's when I launched the podcast. And it was pretty easy. I think the tools that are out there now for entrepreneurs to use, whether it's podcasting, website building, are so user friendly that it's really not hard. It's really not
It's
hard.
like it's basically pressing in Kajabi. You can just press one. You can drop the upload file in it, and it just pushes it out to all the major platforms like Apple and
Yeah.
Spotify. And then we use Libsyn because it lets you do some
Hmm.
different tools like ads and things like that. What are you hosting on for your podcast?
Buzzsprout.
Yeah, Buzzsprout's a great
Buzzsprout.
one too. It's got
Hmm.
yeah, it's got ad
Yeah,
platforms, but they're all so ubiquitous. I mean, it's easy to do
hmm
right now.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I didn't find that was hard. I watched some things on the equipment to use. I had watched Pat Flynn, and I used his equipment guides and the one that you had posted in the Flipped member site, and just started piecing it together. Dropping in the intro, the music, the editing was a little challenging. I'm not going to say I hit play and it was done. There was a
yeah.
trial and error, but overall, it was surprisingly simple.
And you told me something off air that I think is super interesting here. Like you're like this was something like a passion project. You're doing this
Mhm.
podcast just to get the word out, to tell these stories, and also like just how good you feel after you communicate with these people. I said
Mhm.
something on Pat Flynn's podcast a few weeks ago. I think everyone should have a podcast, even if they don't make money off of it, even if no one
Mhm.
listens, because it makes you be in tune with your passion and in tune with the things you love. And it keeps like
Mhm.
that fire lit inside of you. And the more you speak, the more you talk into a microphone, the more you bravely post things in the public sphere and open yourself for criticism and things like that. It just gives you this courage and energy to do all this other stuff we have to do to be entrepreneurs, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every guest that I've had on has really blown me away. They've just come on and shared a story about what they overcame, what they're doing now, and it blows me away every time. And I don't do it for sure monetization. It was interesting because my goal wasn't the business. It was an author platform to build, awareness and community about a common theme in my book.
Yeah, yeah,
And what ended up happening was I got contacted by a sponsor and ended up signing up with them and then got paid. So, and they
there
did
you
like a
go.
mid roll. And I was
That's
like,
amazing.
wow, it was unbelievable. And I didn't know what offer to give them. So I reached out to another podcaster who's in my same topic. And I said, "Hey, they've been with you for a while. Like, what do I pitch to them for a number?" And he said, "Go for this." And I did, and they took it, and we were in business. And I couldn't
That's
believe it.
amazing. See, you
Yeah, it was
create it.
amazing.
It doesn't matter what you do. It
I
only
didn't even
matters
research it.
that you do. That's incredible. Oh man,
Right.
the
Hmm.
core principles of Flip Lifestyle. That we teach everything in the blueprint. There's all kinds of information in there, but like the core principle that I always fall back to, even in my own business, is consistent, prolific, and relentless.
Hmm.
And people like ask me like what's the mechanics of that, and I'm like, really honestly, what I'm saying is if you consistently create content, I'm talking you release a podcast once a week for a year, and if you're prolific in the marketing of your content, which means start the Facebook group, post on Instagram, like do something to tell the world about it where it can be shared, and then when people show up, you relentlessly serve them with great content. Or if you have a Facebook group, you serve them well. Money flows, man. Money eventually is drawn to that process like a magnet, right? And even when you don't set out to make money, somehow you do. It's unbelievable how that actually like works. And I've rarely seen anyone who just put the flag in the ground and said, "I'm going to do this for a year." I've rarely seen someone who does that process and not be like money show up somehow. Even if it's just views on YouTube, like you have a YouTube channel, you put stuff out there. I'll get messages all the time. This guy recently was on the podcast, and he was consistent with his courses that he was creating. He posted on Facebook every day live for 1 year, And out of nowhere, he grew this Facebook platform to over 100,000 people and created multiple six figures
That's
selling his
amazing.
guitar course. It's
Wow.
just because he did what you're doing now, basically,
Mhm.
and he
Mhm.
saw these
Mhm.
fruits come up. So let's move on to like now. All these things are kind of, this is beautiful. I just want to tell you, like, I am so impressed and proud of the process that you're on right now,
Thank
because
you.
this
Mhm.
mirrors Jocelyn and my process when we started our business. We were just doing all these things, learning how to
Mhm.
podcast, figuring out what skills we had from the past, tried a couple things to make a little bit of money, launched content out in the world. And it took us like 7, 8, 9 months before that money started like coming into our world, being drawn to this business that we did. So you're on this right path. Now, what is the business that you're wanting to create now? And that's the one you're going to focus on the most.
The business that I want to create is separate from the book and the podcast. That's like a heart project. That is very important to me. But on the business side, I want to do the Female Entrepreneur Organization. I just started building my website. I got my domain name. All of the pieces are being put together. I'm looking to launch a podcast that I'm so excited about in January. And this is to support female entrepreneurs in their beginning stages who are also
Mm,
managing all the things at home, managing, and it's so hard to not want to jump ship when you have so many plates flying in the air. And, so there's organizational tools, there's get the idea out of your head, put a name on it, grab your website, grab your one social, and then move
yeah.
on. Like everybody should, that wants to, that has an idea in their head, should have a try at this and should also have a spot on the internet if they want to, because there's
Yeah.
so much there for them. There's so much
And it's
opportunity.
and it
And I want to
sounds
help
like,
them
I'm
do that.
looking,
It's hard. Hmm.
yeah, because it sounds like you're focusing on not just those mechanical things, but it's like your website has a lot of emotion to it, right? Like I'm looking at your
Hmm.
website right now, and like at the top you have this like happiness challenge, and you have like hope and unexpected places, and you have like entrepreneurs with ideas moving forward. So it sounds like you're trying to help people a lot with the mindset that's going to hold them back from actually doing these things.
Exactly. But because it's the tech part is there. And like we were just saying, it's user friendly. We can all be directed to that. And it's a learning curve and it takes time. But I think if you're going to stay here till the finish line, like you have to have support. If you're raising
Yeah.
kids and you have another job and you have all the activities at night, how are you going to fit this in? But if you really want to, it's totally possible. And it really
Yeah.
like
And you,
it's yeah, it's just really something that has added something to me and to my home that is just at a different level than where I was before I started. I was just doing my
heck
life,
yeah.
but when I added me back in and I made an investment in myself again as, being, a mom of three, and I kind of put myself back in. And I said, "Hey, I count too. Let's do this."
Yes, and this is just so amazing because like Joss and I talk about this a lot, like with like moms who feel like they're pigeonholed into that role, right? And everything they do is kind of for everyone else, and their identity gets kind of not taken from them, but shifted away. And it's like when you invested in yourself, when you joined the community and you took your freelancing and your writing and your you reclaimed Jessica's identity back.
Right. You kind of reclaim, and then your kids get a different example. They
Mm,
don't get just the tired, like, I got to, they get a little peek of like who you were before you got started here. And then they get like my youngest daughter, she just did her own podcast. She is 9 years old and
what? Get out of here.
Shane, I kid you not, I can send it to you. And it's called Women Who Changed the World. And she did her first episode and it was brilliant. And I thought, oh my goodness, So, but the thing is, you do have to balance it. So I want to incorporate that into the Female Entrepreneur Organization because so many times I wanted to jump off because of guilt. Because my
Mm,
kids don't need a published author in the house. They need a mom. So how do we
yeah.
balance all of that? And how do we, like show up when we're supposed to show up? And then how do we cut off when we're supposed to cut off and get all the things done? And I just want to be there for them for that and help them kind of push them along so they don't give up because they can do it, you know?
Yeah. We try not to in our parenting journey because we talk all the time like our kids don't remember what life was like before we were entrepreneurs. Like they might remember where we lived, but they don't really remember like what we did. They don't remember me going to school. They don't remember Jocelyn going to the library. They barely remember the football games just because those are kind of easier memories to remember because they were on the field or running around or whatever. And like what we always struggle with this work life balance comment, like of how to balance everything. I think what we've realized is it's more like a soup. Like it's just all kind of mixed like together. And I think the most important skill you can learn as an entrepreneur that's a parent is how to transition, how to task switch multiple times a day into I'm going to write my book for 2 hours and then I'm going to pause and take my kids to school and then I'm going to become a dad again and then I'm going to take that hat back off and put the podcaster hat on and then I'm going to take the podcaster hat off and go pick my kids up and take them to the gym or something like that. So that's hard to manage for people too. It really is.
I remember at the live event, I remember you talking about you and Jocelyn going to a restaurant and with the time blocking sheet. And from that point on, it was like, we either do this like this or we're not going to be able to do this.
That's
and that
exactly
is,
right.
I would have to say, I have implemented that and fell off and implemented. And that is the one piece that once implemented, like strongly, I think that will really get me places because my husband's also an entrepreneur. He has his own business. We have a company, really busy. We're in Florida. We're in the hurricane business. We just got hit. Like there is a lot of motion in our house. But if we could go to a restaurant and take that sheet and put it all there and not jump off of the schedule, we could do it. And we could do it like calmly and like with ease and sometimes crazy, but they're used to it. I mean, he's been doing it for a while. We're in the mix of it, but I think that's really key.
How old are your kids?
9, 12 and 18.
Oh yeah, you're right in the thick of it with it, right where we are, man. 13 and 15, man. It's like we call ourselves Moober and Duber because we're dad and mom Ubers all the time now for our
just driving.
Does your 18-year-old help like take the kids?
Oh yeah, she's incredible, absolutely incredible. I asked her today.
That gives me hope.
She was leaving for college. And I said, could you pick him up from school? My son, I'll get my daughter. Can you pick him? And she said, well, I have to go do this. And she said, yes, I'll do it. And I thought, thank God, because I know what I have. I know what I have
Isaac
today.
Gets his permit in 30
I've got
days.
practice at 5:30. I've got dinner at 5. I've got this at 12:15. I've got this. And she said yes. And she always says yes. She's incredible. She's amazing.
That's amazing. When Isaac gets his permit, we've already told him you're on practice from now on, both of you. You got to find wherever you're responsible for your sister. Please don't show up at 6:30 without her anytime.
Because there's sports and there's everything.
Their lives are busier than ours. They have more appointments than I do. It's absolutely insane once they start getting into middle school. But like for the audience that's listening, so the story that Jessica's talking about is we were school teachers when we started our business. I was coaching football. Our kids were really little, so there was daycares and all this other stuff going on. And we went to a Mexican restaurant one night and I bought one of those big graph papers that you buy like for ledgers and we flipped it over to the back. And I tried to find pens and pencils when we were leaving, but I couldn't find any. So I just picked up a big box of my kids' crayons. And it was literally, I'm in a Mexican restaurant with Crayolas in my hand. And we drew on the back of this paper, we drew 168 squares, a big grid, because you have 168 hours in your life. And we said, okay, what are the non-negotiables? And we would say, okay, we would have to sleep. So we colored all the times we slept in black. And then we said, we have to work or we don't have enough money to even try this and live. So we colored all that out in red. And then what we said was, okay, well, time with our kids is non-negotiable. So we have to write that down. When are we going to do that? So we put the time with our kids on. And what we found after we went through this process of when do we eat? We kind of marked that off. And we found out that we had like an hour and a half, 2 hours of free time each day that was not colored in at the end of this process. So then we asked a question. We said, what are we doing with that time now? Well, what were we doing? We were watching television. I was playing Xbox with my brother. These are valuable things to relax and chill. And you need some of that in your life.
Yeah.
But we needed to build a business. So we Then we put the business in that time. And once the squares are full, you just don't get to add anything else. That's just the way it is. And that single activity today is we still do this. We do it a little more high tech now. Our kids actually have Google Calendar on their phones, and we share all of our calendars, and they can see when our appointments are. They can see when I have a podcast. They can see when they're going to get picked up. And now we coordinate our life the same way. When do we work? When do we sleep? Our kids' activities always take priority. And then we can plan the rest of our travel and things like that as well. And it's just so much easier to say no when you can visually see that there's no more time. And saying
Yeah,
no is half the battle as an entrepreneur. Beautiful.
sure.
So what have you done to start this business so far? And then we'll dig into it a little bit and see if we can figure out next steps.
Well, the first thing I did was I came up with a name and then I checked the domain and I couldn't believe it was available. So I grabbed
Mm-hmm.
it. I grabbed an Instagram handle and a Facebook, and then I started to build my website. And so my website's being built right now. I do it myself because I use Podia.
Yeah.
So I just kind of got the logo, got all that kind of thing, and then just had like what I wanted to offer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I landed on one-to-one coaching. So I
Sure.
am working on 3 tiers of that, and also accountability sessions, because to me that's just key. That's just absolute
Yeah.
key for people to move forward. And so that's where I am. I'm building that, and I have my outline for my podcast already in place. I have 12 topics that I'm going to speak
Okay.
on. Currently, with my other podcast, I just do the audio. I have it up on YouTube, but the shorts are the only ones that are videos.
Sure.
With this one, I'd like to do it right straight to video and
Yeah, for
also
sure.
audio,
Yeah,
as
you
I
have
should
so
have
many
done.
more options when you record the video. Like you can just put it everywhere.
Yeah, so I have that, and I just launched a Facebook group for the female entrepreneur organization on Monday to build community.
And how many people joined that group?
62 already
That's
joined. So that's
amazing. And are
great
people
news.
finding this in search, or is this people you've reached out to,
And
like
just
a little bit of both?
commenting and engaging with other groups.
There you go.
And
Great
also
strategy.
posting like I just opened this and join. This is what we're going to do. And I have a content calendar that I have that's going to go throughout for the next month.
Sure.
And I'll go in there on Wednesdays. I haven't yet. I was supposed to twice already, but I'll just go in there Wednesdays and give an organizational tip on Wednesdays. And the rest is for them to share and promote and celebrate wins and just build community so we can start to collaborate and talk to one another. And
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do one in-person event here in my town.
Heck yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is okay. So
Okay.
right now, you know how to do content. So you got that, you got the plan, you're going to batch them, you're going to schedule them, you know how to do that. You've got this
Hmm.
group with people in it, right, that are starting to kind of engage and starting to kind of get fired up about what you're doing. You have this idea for offers, right? You know there's going to be
Hmm.
coaching. That probably needs some definition, like what does the coaching cover, things like that. You want to do this live piece. The question is now, if you're marketing, how do you convert them into a customer? How do you get these people from that? Have you thought about sales process yet? Have you thought about how to get those people from podcast listener and Facebook group member to email list and to sale? Have you thought about anything like that yet?
No, so part of my web build is, obviously there's an email component. And so an email campaign, like once I have that set up, I was thinking of doing a monthly to start because I have a weekly newsletter with my other website, a monthly newsletter that's really involved, like it has everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So once I set the email up, then the only thing that I've got so far is pretty much as far as I've gotten, but that's where I was going to start to talk about my offers. And then once I have the offers in place, because I don't have them scripted out, I can also start putting them as content on my socials.
Yeah. So here's a strategy that I have learned this year that's working well. It can work
Okay.
on any social media platform. And it especially is good for one-on-one coaching, is DM marketing. So
Hmm.
like if you have this Facebook group, you have an interesting ability because you can, as the group owner, you can see everybody that's in there. So, of course, there's going to be engagement in the content. There's going to be comments. There's going to be likes. There's going to be like you go live or you post a
Hmm.
meme or you do something where you get this engagement. And then you can see
Right.
the data on the engagement. You can see like who's your most engaged followers, who's the most engaged group members. So the strategy is how can you get them to DM you or you just go outbound and DM them and you start building this personal relationship with as many of these engaged members. You don't have to, let's say you grow this thing to 1,000 group members in the next 6 months or something, right? You don't have to
Okay.
sit there and message 1,000 people all the time. You can. That's a little colder, but you're looking for that 10, 20, 30% of people that are actually like paying attention, right?
Okay.
So the
Hmm.
flow kind of works like this. You're engaging in the comments. You notice someone that something hits a nerve, like you post something and people are like, that's my exact problem. I wish I could get over this, whatever it is. So
Right.
then what you do is you DM that person and you say, hey, I saw your comment on this. Just want to know I really want to support you in that. Here is a free resource that can help you with that specific problem. And what you do is you drop a link and then they go give you the name and email when they go get the thing for the lead magnet. So now you have this really warm lead that's opting into your list and they've already had one interaction with you. Selling one on one coaching requires multiple interactions over a set period of time to build that know, like, and trust deeper to where they can come in and buy your coaching program. But then what happens is your email autoresponder can take over from that point and work in the back end to do all of the selling. And maybe you have like a 6 or 7 email sequence where you're dropping some value, you're asking them to email you back if they need any support. And eventually, what you want to offer them is like a 15-minute free call or a 20
Sure.
minute free
Okay.
call.
Hmm.
And then they jump on a call with you to talk about this issue that you've already been kind of DMing back and forth with. Your emails are kind of warming up, all automated after you get that initial DM. And
Hmm.
then they get on the call, and that's where you sell them your coaching. That's where you make the offer. Just like we would sit down at a live event and say, hey, here's what we offer. Does this look like something you'd be interested in? You're doing the exact same thing on a Zoom call to get them into your coaching program, right?
Yeah.
So that would be the flow. That the way you're building this sounds a lot like build an actual community for free,
Hmm.
engage with that community a lot, but then you take the initiative and introduce yourselves on the back end where you can talk to people individually.
Hmm.
Use this lead magnet strategy to get those get hyper engaged people on your list. You can share that too on the group every once in a while just to get a bunch of people to opt in for it. But like this DM marketing is a perfect setup to get them into that call where you can really get to know them and then offer them the coaching package. You know what I mean? What are you going to charge for your coaching? Do you know?
No, I had a tier like I think the highest was 497, 297, and 97. Like a 3 tier.
What do they get for that? Like, what do they get out of it?
Um,
And
it's
a
all,
one-on-one
I don't have it
call.
in front of me, but yeah, it would be, the increased price would be more calls throughout a longer period of time. So
I
like
gotcha.
support for a longer term,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
the shorter one being just like getting the idea going and then this, and then it ends at 97. But if you go to 297 or 597, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's for 30-minute calls. I have
Yeah,
it
yeah,
all
yeah.
tiered out, but I don't have it right here.
For $500, I would probably, if you're going to do like let's say that $500 gets you 4 calls. Let's just say it gets you that.
Okay.
What you
Mm-hmm.
probably what you want to be very careful with coaching is not giving people a long tail. You don't want to give them, because then what happens is a lot of people will wait until the end or they'll just mess it up, and like then all of a sudden you've got all these people that are trying to book calls all at once, right?
Okay.
So like
Yeah.
for $500, I would say like 4 calls spread over 8 weeks, right? And then
Over 8 weeks.
yeah, because what happens is it gives them urgency to use it.
Mm-hmm.
You can space it out though. It gives them like 2 weeks between calls so they can go do some work in between whatever you decide that they need help with.
So
And
there's a
then
beginning and end to
there's
the.
a beginning and an end. You don't want to leave it just completely open ended like a coaching package. That is, that long tail can cause problems way down the road. You know what I'm saying? Because you're going to constantly sell more, and then these people who might not use it effectively are going to pack up, and then all of a sudden you look up one week and you're like, I have 37 phone calls this week.
Right.
Right, right. And also
Hmm.
too, it's like it gives you a way to turn it into more of like a recurring situation.
Yeah.
because after 8 weeks, you've served them, they've had their 4 calls. You give them an extension if they need it, but it gives you a chance to resell it. Like, hey, do you want to keep going? Now all of a sudden you get repeat customers. So you're not starting at zero every single 8 weeks. You can start stacking them over time. And I'll tell you another thing that we have really learned, and people absolutely love it, is we have a coaching program that is not solely based on these one-on-one appointments, because appointments become hard. People are busy. They've got to find time to do it. It's got to match up with your schedule that you can do it. So we're using an app called Marco Polo.
Uh-huh.
And what it is,
I've
it's
heard
an
of that.
asynchronous tool for video communication. So it's kind of like this app called Voxer. Most people know what Voxer is. It's like a
Yeah, so it's like a
walkie-talkie
back
app.
and forth. Yes.
It's a back and forth, but it's on video. So you really get
Wow.
that personal connection of seeing each other, and like they'll be driving in their car asking you a question. Their kids are in the background, our kids. So you get this like real intense personal feel to it. Like,
Uh-huh.
so
Yeah,
it's
that's
so
great.
beautiful, and it records everything so they can go back and listen to messages over and over. And what I find is this: it's a better way to coach, because like these messages might be 2 or 3 minutes back and forth in a day, right? And they have this one thing that they can then go do, instead of this hour long call where you covered
With
100
everything.
different
Hmm.
topics and it's so overwhelming. We're finding that people are really getting it done. And we've got an amazing couple from Australia in our Marco Polo program, and they said the reason they joined this over every other coaching program was because of the time zone differences. They didn't have to make appointments. They didn't have to do anything. I don't care if you're Pacific time zone, East Coast, everybody's checking it when they can check it. So it's just
Yeah.
smoother. And as a coach yourself, the benefit for you is, we call it found time. When we first
Hmm.
started our online business, Joss and I would realize that we could go up to Lexington, Kentucky and shop, but the hour and a half there and the hour and a half back, one of us could work while the other one drove. So it's like, oh man, this is time that we can work. And when we get home, we can play with the kids. So like you can use this Marco Polo app at the gym, you can use it in the car. So you as the coach, your time becomes much more manageable when you do it this way. So you can offer one-on-one calls too, but offer them that in addition to it, to
I
kind of give
like
them in
that.
between
Because
time.
I remember in the beginning, a lot of times I would be stuck on just one thing that I needed to get my website going. And if I just had that one answer,
The
but I
bat phone.
sometimes would have to
You need the
wait
bat
for a
phone.
week.
That's
You
right. You
just
got to
kind of
wait
can
till your next
dial in,
call.
you're done.
Yeah, man. Oh,
Exactly. And you got it
yeah.
going.
And it's so cool because like you can like, I'll wake up every morning. On weekdays we check ours, and like I'll see, not everyone messages you every day, right?
Right.
And the messages that come in, you might have 10 people message you, but their messages are 2 minutes each. So
Hmm.
and then you're sending them a 3 or 4 minute message back to get them exactly what they need, like a scalpel. So you're
Right.
talking an hour to serve 10 people instead of an hour to serve one person. So it's super powerful. I'd highly recommend you look into that for the coaching business. Now, how are we going to make sure the podcast launches? Like, when are you going to batch those 12 episodes? Are you about to do that?
Yeah, I'm getting set up. I have the outline. I'm really, really close to being able to start. And what would your suggestion be? I just was listening to somebody. They said, do 4 videos in one day.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, I haven't done that before because I do them as they come. But I think what's important with launching, right? You want to do 3 at the first go. So you have
Yeah.
to have quite a few in the queue. What do you say, like 20, 10? Like how many would you
I
do before you hit play?
I usually recommend people do 10 episodes and get
Hmm.
those recorded, because 10 episodes is enough to get that 2 months ahead. And then you can record about a month each month. So you can stay ahead. You don't want
Right.
to be too far
Okay.
ahead. We had one time we were like 20 weeks out, but then
Hmm.
like I had changed some things I wanted to teach by then, and I was saying stuff. So I try not to get more than like 8 or 9 weeks out at any given
Okay.
time. And
Hmm.
then I would not record 4 in a day. I know people say
Yeah.
that
I
because
just saw
there's
that
people out
last
there that
night. I
do
was
it.
like, wow. Uh-huh.
No, I am as professional of a podcaster. I don't know how many people on earth have 1,000 podcasts, but it can't be many, right?
Right.
And it wears me out to do more than 3 in a day. It's
Yeah.
just so much. You forget what you've said. Even interviews that are kind of like new
Yeah.
every time you talk to somebody. I would probably do 3 in a day, but maybe block out like 3 days in a row to do it. Now you'll get
Sure.
9. So
And
so
then
definitely
editing. Do you
batch.
edit like a week out?
We are usually edited out, I'd say about 4 weeks. I think that we have four in the can ready to go at any given time, unless our recording schedule gets backed up. But we'll have probably 6 to 8 recorded at any given time,
That's
basically.
amazing.
I do hire out my editing. I pay for
You
someone to
do.
do that. Yes.
You do, yeah.
I have a good editor. Kevin Crow's a member of the community if you want to reach out to him and see
Oh,
what he can
Kevin,
do.
yeah, he does editing. Oh, that's
He
great.
does, yeah, just reach out to him in the forums.
Oh, that's great. I will do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the sober living stories, it's booked out to like March. It's
Yeah.
like just it's going, you know, like I've never.
That's different though, because it's like that's such a personal thing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like each podcast is its own entity in the main theme. I think these entrepreneur ones, like, are you if you're going to talk about topics that need to be timely and you want to talk to people about things you're learning, you might need to kind of not stay that far ahead. But you can. There's no right wrong answer.
No, but is it like what is your suggestion on this? So because it's an entrepreneur business podcast, I was going to do Tuesdays or something where I spoke for maybe 15, but then would you suggest having a guest? I love doing guests because the collaboration is just incredible. Would you do that weekly or would you do that monthly with what I'm trying to do, or maybe bi-weekly? And then
I
I
mean,
would
I
just do it.
if I get on a solo kick, like I get
Mhm.
tired of talking to myself after about 2 or 3 episodes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I might want to do a solo episode and then a guest, and then a solo and a guest. But that's more for my
Okay.
mental sanity than best practices,
Right. Or
right? It
like
just
every
depends how much you like
fourth.
solo. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Do
that's
an
great. Like
interview.
every fourth, that's great. Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. I mean, whatever schedule's right for you is the answer here, because this
Hmm.
is your podcast, your flow, your energy. So, like, if you want to do one guest a month and you want to have some topics the rest of the time, and you can farm guests out of the Flip Lifestyle community. I mean, there's hundreds of female entrepreneurs in there. You can just post it up and be like, "Who wants to go on my podcast?" And I'm sure people would jump up into it for sure.
Great.
Amazing.
All right.
Well, I love what you're building. This is
Thank
amazing.
you.
I love the and my favorite thing about this conversation was
Hmm.
how you found yourself again and brought this self that maybe your kids and your family had not seen, and that energy spread throughout your household. Like
Yeah.
that's why we're entrepreneurs, people, man.
Right.
We're breaking cycles and changing family trees,
Changing
and
lives.
we're changing lives. We change lives for a living, no matter what we do online. And you're doing an absolutely
Yeah.
great job. So if anybody wants to
Thank
learn
you.
more about this, maybe they want to learn about your book for sober living, maybe they want to learn more about the female entrepreneurs podcast and things like that, where's the best place for them to go online?
Best place is my website. It's www.jessicastepanovic.com. That's Stipanovic. And I also have two Facebook communities, the Female Entrepreneur Organization and also the Sober Living Stories.
Everybody go check that out. And Jessica, thank you for being on the Flip Lifestyle podcast and being an amazing member of the Flip Lifestyle community.
Thank you so much for having me, Shane. I loved it. Thanks.
All right, y'all. That wraps up today's podcast with Jessica Stipanovic. Go check out her stuff. Her book's going to be amazing when it comes out. She's almost going to publish that out. And she has the Sober Living podcast. If you've struggled with that or if you've overcome that, might be a great thing to listen to. And if you're a female entrepreneur looking for that personal development, looking for that support that you need, and Jessica's got a really cool vibe here. It has a very feminine vibe. Everything's in cursive. Do people still write in cursive? My kids do not know how to write cursive. I don't think they teach it anymore. Like the only cursive words they learn is their signature. And I'm gonna get off my lawn on this one. We all need to know some cursive around here so we can write faster. But I guess we all type and text each other anymore. So really, Chat GPT just talks for us now. So whatever. But check out Jessica's stuff. Anything you need on there. And then just like earlier in the podcast, when I was talking about our coaching program, our Marco Polo, we call it Membership Plus over in the Flip Lifestyle community. If you're looking for some coaching, if you're looking for some one-on-one support, if you're looking for daily access to me and Jocelyn, you can learn more about that at flippedlifestyle.com. And when you click the join now button, you can check it out. We have two programs. We have our Flipped Lifestyle membership, where you can learn how to start, build, and grow an online business, where you can learn more, you can earn more, you can live more, you can build the business that gives you the freedom that you and family wants. Thousands of people have went through the Flipped Lifestyle membership. Just like Jessica and all the people that we mentioned today. It was like a who's who of the Flip Lifestyle community as we worked through all the friends and networking that Jessica had done. But you can check that out, the Flip Lifestyle membership, or you can do Flip Lifestyle membership plus, which will give you Marco Polo access to me. And just like I talked to Jessica today, answered her questions, gave her support, maybe some ideas and some things to work on, we can help you in your online dream too. So we got two great tiers. both very affordable prices. We always want the Flip Lifestyle community to be the most accessible place online to get the information you need to become an entrepreneur and start earning income for your family. But that's all the time we have today. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be right back with you guys here next week. Until then, get out there, take action, and do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to flip your life. We'll see you then.